The Japan-US trade negotiations have undergone multiple rounds, with Japan maintaining a firm stance. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has explicitly refused to make significant concessions. Core industries like automobiles, which Japan prioritizes, must be protected. Japan is only willing to offer minor concessions in agriculture to the U.S. Finance Minister Katsunobu Kato stated on a Tokyo TV program that Japan's holdings of U.S. Treasury bonds could serve as a negotiating leverage, though whether to use it is a separate matter. This clearly signals to the U.S. that Japan possesses countermeasure capabilities but prefers not to escalate tensions. This marks Japan's strongest stance on a major issue against the U.S. to date. Those following my channel should know that I analyzed in a video long ago that Shigeru Ishiba differs from other Japanese prime ministers. He appears to be a seasoned political operator, sharing some traits with Trump, such as a disregard for appearances. However, his ambitions are underestimated by most. His political goals are lofty, and he is reluctant to compromise. He once stated he would rather not be Japan's prime minister than sign a second Plaza Accord and become Japan's sinner. Japan, viewed by Americans as a military colony, economic vassal, and a tool to counter China and Russia, has developed its own agenda. Japan once boasted immense economic strength and technological prowess, dominating market competition and overwhelming American and Western companies. In the 1980s, 6 of the world's top 10 semiconductor companies were Japanese, leading the industry, while Intel and Nvidia were minor players. Japanese automobiles and appliances swept the U.S. market, creating a perception among Americans of being inversely colonized by Japan. Japan's political system was largely designed by the U.S. In terms of defense, Japan hosts the largest U.S. overseas military presence, with Japan even funding these forces and granting extraterritorial rights. Japan poses no threat to U.S. national security. Yet, those with historical memory recall U.S. congressmen burning cars, smashing Japanese appliances, and promoting Japan threat theories, even labeling Japan as a yellow peril. This scene resembles today's situation. What did Japan do wrong? Like China today, nothing, except developing to a point where Anglo-Saxons felt insecure and uncontrollable. This is something they absolutely cannot tolerate. Since modern times, any nation challenging Anglo-Saxon hegemony has been defeated, and Japan was no exception. Japan at that time, with its integrated industry-academia research model, lifetime employment system, and 2 generations of highly skilled, hardworking post-war baby boomers, feared no one in economic or technological warfare. Japanese Nobel laureates emerged continuously. Conglomerates like Toyota, Mitsubishi, Toshiba, Panasonic, Nikon, and Canon thrived, expanded, and supported each other. Even with European allies, the U.S. could not outcompete Japan. However, Japan had a fatal weakness. It was militarily occupied by the U.S., reliant on the U.S. for security, and politically threatened by the Soviet Union, which had not yet collapsed. When the U.S. rallied European allies to force Japan to sign the Plaza Accord, revaluing the yen and reducing exports, Japan reluctantly complied. This marked the beginning of Japan's lost 3 decades, with its economy stagnating and never regaining its former glory. The Plaza Accords' negative effects extended beyond economic decline. To prevent Japan from threatening the U.S. in technology again, the U.S. forced Japan to sign the U.S.-Japan Semiconductor Agreement, suppressing Japan's semiconductor industry while supporting South Korea and Taiwan's development. This caused Japan to miss the internet technology revolution, leaving an entire generation as spectators. Meanwhile, China, despite economic backwardness, leveraged its vast population and strategic planning to catch the internet revolution, birthing giants like Tencent, Baidu, Alibaba, and NetEase. which still influence markets today. The US never spares defeated opponents, like the Soviet Union, which was dismantled and still faced NATO's eastward expansion, compressing Russia's security space. Japan faced similar treatment. With US support, South Korea's Samsung, LG, and Hyundai rose rapidly, and Taiwan's TSMC quietly grew, significantly shrinking Japanese companies' markets and preventing Japan's economic revival. The Plaza Accord also left Japan's younger generation hopeless and lost, indulging in the adult industry and console gaming, devoid of their parents' glory. China's 1980s generation grew up watching Japanese anime and using Japanese electronics. Yet, upon entering the workforce, they found the once perfect Japan they admired had vanished. Among their peers, the sole goal became surpassing the US. Japan is rarely mentioned now, and when it is, it evokes pity. The fates of Japan and the Soviet Union taught China a lesson. Facing an opponent like the US and Anglo-Saxons, the best negotiation tactic is a stronger fist and more ammunition. Their dictionary lacks rules. Rules apply only when favorable to them. When disadvantageous, they overturn the table, tear up agreements, and demand renegotiation. Refuse to concede, and you face their fists. China avoided becoming a second Japan due to its massive population and internal market, sustaining its company's growth. Militarily and diplomatically independent, China possesses the ability to destroy the US, deterring reckless military adventures. In its second year after founding, the Chinese Communist Party confronted the US in Korea, pushing American forces from the Yalu River to the 38th parallel. This instilled in Chinese a genetic fearlessness of the US. Back then, despite backwardness, China held its own. Today, China's economy, measured by purchasing power parity, surpasses the US, and its industrial capacity exceeds that of the US and its allies combined. China is even less likely to make major concessions to Trump's political blackmail. If the US wants to talk, China welcomes it, but only on equal terms. If the US wants to fight, the Chinese government has repeatedly stated it will meet any form of war head-on. Amid China's resolute stance, Japan, the EU, and Canada also refuse to yield. If the US persists with its hegemonism, it risks global isolation. Should the world de-Americanize and de-dollarize, an unprecedented disaster awaits the US. I believe Shigeru Ishiba could seize this historic opportunity to break free from US military dependence. Facing China and Russia alone may reduce security. But if small nations like Ukraine and Lithuania can exist, why should Japan, with over 100 million people, fear? If submission is inevitable, China offers better terms. Japan has knelt before in history. Why kneel to the US?